Traveling to Europe is about to change forever, and if you don't know about these big new rules, your next trip could be delayed or even cancelled at the border. Whether you travel to Europe regularly like me, or you're planning a long-haul European vacation, listen up because this will definitely affect you. Rolling out from October, the EU's new digital border entry-exit system is the biggest change hitting European travel for decades. So in this video, I'm breaking down everything you need to know about this new system, from who it affects, to how it works, and what you need to do before your next trip. But the EES is just one of 5 major European travel changes on its way. So stick around because I'm also going to reveal 4 other important new rules you absolutely must know about to travel smoothly in 2025 and 2026. So let's start with the biggest change of all, the EU Entry-Exit System, or EES. And you might well be asking, what exactly is it? And who is this new system for? Well, starting on October 12, 2025, the EU is rolling out its automated digital border system that's going to replace that old-school passport stamp. It will affect all non-EU passport holders entering the European Union for stays of up to 90 days. On your first trip, you'll register at the border by scanning your passport and having your fingerprints and a photo taken. This means that instead of a border officer flipping through your passport, biometric scanners will track your entry and exit automatically. Space-age facial recognition and fingerprint scans will replace traditional passport checks. Now here's where it gets interesting. This system will track every single entry and exit. That means no more confusion about how long you've stayed in Europe. The system knows exactly when you entered and when you left. And for those of you wondering about overstaying your visa, well, they're going to be pretty much impossible to get away with from now on. So where exactly will this be rolled out? And when should you expect to see it? The EES will be a requirement when entering any of the Schengen area countries. This includes all 25 EU member states, plus Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland. So basically, almost all of mainland Europe, with the exceptions of Ireland and Cyprus. The new entry-exit system will start operations on the 12th of October 2025, and countries will introduce the system gradually over 6 months until it's in place at all ports, airports and border crossings by April 2026. This gradual implementation is meant to minimize disruption, especially at peak travel times. Most travelers will interact with the entry-exit system when they first arrive in the EU, but if you're traveling from the UK via the port of Dover, or the Eurotunnel or Eurostar, the registration will actually take place in the UK before you even leave. Now you're probably wondering what will the process actually be like on your first visit, and what happens after that. For your first trip to a participating country after the new system goes live, you'll need to go through the full registration. Passport control officers will scan your fingerprints or take a photo of your face, and this information will be recorded in a digital file. The good news is, once you're registered, it's valid for a rolling 3-year period, or until your passport expires. On subsequent entries and exits, you'll just need to scan your passport and provide either your fingerprints or a photo at the border. One question I've heard a lot is whether you can register for this in advance to avoid long queues. And unfortunately, there's currently no widely available system to pre-register your biometrics from home or at an airport kiosk before your trip. This may change in the future, but for now my personal advice is to be prepared to arrive a little earlier than usual for your first trip after October 2025 to give yourself plenty of time. So what are the expected benefits of the new system? Well, the EU says it's all about making things better in the long run, making border checks faster by replacing manual passport stamps with a digital system, and should help everyone spend less time in queues. One of its most important purposes is to track people who enter the Schengen area with a passport, but then overstay their 90-day limit. This system will make it virtually impossible for someone to legally enter and then illegally remain in the EU. Importantly though, it's not designed to stop people who cross borders illegally outside of an official checkpoint. What if you have more than one passport, or you're a legal resident in an EU country? This is a really important point. The EES rules only apply to non-EU citizens traveling for a short stay. So if you hold an EU passport, or if you have a residence permit for a Schengen area country, this new system will not apply to you. You can continue to use your EU passport or resident card to cross borders as you normally would. And finally, I know many people have been asking, what does it mean for our data and personal freedom to have fingerprints and photos recorded by a government agency? It's a really valid question. While the EU maintains the data is being collected purely for security reasons and to help authorities track overstayers and combat serious crime, The fact is, this new system fundamentally changes the information authorities have about us. And after all, other countries like Japan and the United States already do this. So I'm really curious to hear from you. Are you concerned by the idea of giving your biometric data at the border? Or do you think it's a fair trade-off for faster travel? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But there's more. Along with the EES comes the European Travel Information and Authorisation System, or ETIAS for short. It's a new security measure being implemented by the European Union for all travellers coming from any of the 60 currently visa-exempt countries, including the USA, Canada, and even visitors from the UK. Now, according to the official EU website, the ETIAS is expected to start 6 months after the rollout of the EES is completed, so around October 2026. So what is it exactly? ETIAS is a mandatory pre-travel screening process that aims to enhance border security, making entry into Europe smoother and more secure by knowing about who's coming to the European Schengen area before they even arrive. And it's very similar to the ETA scheme in the United States, or Canada's Electronic Travel Authorization Scheme. You'll need to apply online before your trip, and you'll need to provide some basic personal information like your passport details, name, citizenship info, and some other security info like your planned destination. It'll cost you €7, but it's free if you're under 18 or over 70. Officially, you should apply at least 96 hours before your trip, but my advice is don't leave this to the last minute. Get it sorted out in advance, because there's bound to be some hiccups when the system is first introduced. The good news, though, is once you get your ETIAS approval, it's valid for 3 years or until your passport expires, whichever comes first. And you can make multiple trips during this time, as long as you don't stay more than 90 days in any 6-month period. You can keep an eye on the EU website for updates. And these new border entry changes for Europe are just the beginning, so if you're finding this video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to stay updated with all these coming changes. Now, if you're planning on heading to the UK, then there's even more you need to know about. Since the UK left the European Union, it introduced its own system from the beginning of January 2025, called the Electronic Travel Authorization, or ETA. If you're from countries like the United States, Canada, or Australia, you'll need to get this authorization before you even think about boarding your flight to the UK. It costs £16 per person and is valid for 2 years. You'll need to apply using a mobile app, and it's not just a formality. The UK government will be checking your background, and while they say most applications should be approved on the day you apply, some could take up to 3 business days. So you definitely don't want to leave this to the last minute. And here's where it gets even more interesting, because from April 2025, even EU citizens will need an ETA to enter the UK. The only exceptions will be British and Irish passport holders and those who already have a valid UK visa. Once you get your ETA though, it's valid for multiple entries over 2 years, and you can stay for up to 6 months each time you visit, which is pretty generous. It also links digitally to your passport, so when you're at the airport check-in, the airline staff can instantly verify if your ETA is valid. This means less hassle at the border and hopefully shorter queues at immigration. Now let's talk about some other changes to European travel that are going to hit you in the wallet. Tourist taxes are getting a major overhaul across Europe. Cities and regions are introducing new fees or increasing existing ones to manage over-tourism and fund local infrastructure. Venice is leading the charge with a controversial dynamic tourist tax system. Starting April 2025, if you're visiting for just a day, it could cost you up to €10 depending on when you arrive. Book early and you might pay less. Show up last minute on a busy day, that's when you'll pay the full amount. Greece is also hiking up its nationwide tourist tax, known as the Climate Crisis Resilience Fee. The tax is intended to help rebuild Greece's infrastructure, which has been damaged by climate change. It varies depending on the type of accommodation and the time of year, from €2 per night up to as much as €8 in high season. That might not sound like much, but for a family staying 2 weeks, it could add an extra €400 to €500 for your trip. And it's a similar story in Portugal's Madeira Islands, where they're now charging €3 per person for the use of any of their 30 scenic hiking trails. It's not just a fee, it's about funding infrastructure and maintaining beautiful locations, but it'll still add up. More and more of us are flying carry-on only these days, but the rules about bag sizes and what you can and can't bring in your carry-on are a constantly changing minefield, depending on which country you're traveling in or which airline you're flying with. Getting it wrong could literally get you rejected at security and ruin your trip before it even starts. Airlines are definitely becoming stricter on checking carry-on sizes, and it's more and more common to see bag size checkers at the boarding gates and charging passengers a fee if they're too big. It's particularly an issue if you're flying with budget airlines, and I've certainly been victim of this myself a few times. While the airlines say this is partly to try and speed up the boarding process, more likely than not, it's to squeeze a few more dollars or euros out of passengers. And hot off the press, there's some great news for anyone flying in Europe. The days of having to pay extra fees for your carry-on bag might be coming to an end. In June, the EU officially backed proposals to let you bring a small carry-on bag up to 7 kilograms on board for free, even on those sneaky budget airlines. The new rule would ensure cabin bags up to 100 centimeters, plus a personal item with a minimum size of 40 by 30 by 15 centimeters are included with the price of your ticket. Now, the deal's not finalized yet, but this is a massive win for all of us travelers, so keep an eye on this space. Now, if you've flown anywhere since about 2006, you're probably already going to know that the amount of liquids you're allowed in your carry-on is going to be restricted. In North America, it's referred to as the 311 rule, or if you're in Europe, it's the 100 milliliter rule, but none of that is new. So what's changed for 2025? Well, there's some big changes coming to liquids rules in the UK and Europe. Starting this summer, airports with advanced CT scanners including Berlin, Rome, Amsterdam, Edinburgh and Milan will allow passengers to carry liquids like toiletries, olive oil and alcohol in containers of up to 2 litres, with more airports expected to follow soon. But there's a catch. This isn't universal yet. So while more airports will adopt these changes over time, for a while it's likely you'll still have to deal with the old rules on one leg of your flight. Not ideal, especially if you're taking multiple flights. So the best advice is to check the current rules from both your departing and return airports before you travel. But despite all these changes, Europe is still an incredible place to travel. So if you're interested in discovering Europe's less crowded hidden gems, then you need to watch this video here next. Don't forget to leave me a comment with any questions about the new entry-exit or ETIAS schemes. With that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.